right, so now that we have our side pieces done and our base done, you can see it's starting to take shape, and you can sort of get a sense of how this thing is going to fit together. So the next step is to cut out the lateral side pieces here, and those are going to be about 5/16 inches thick, so and 4 inches wide. So what we're going to do there is I'm going to find another piece of walnut, probably not out of this same board, out of a different board, but similar vintage meaning same pile of lumber. And what we'll do is we'll resaw that because it's going to be a 3/4 inch board. When we resaw it, we can easily get 2 pieces out of there that are going to be around 5/16 of an inch thick, and that's going to be absolutely perfect for these sides. So scrounging around in my lumber pile, I found this old dusty girl here, and it's interesting because this is almost blonde. This is purely sapwood on this side, and there's a little bit of heartwood on this side, but I think that's going to play well with these parts we have here, which there's a heavy amount of sapwood on this edge and mostly heartwood over here. So I think when we resaw this, we're going to have a lighter side and a darker side, and I think that'll play well with these parts. So we'll go ahead and get this cut to length, milled up, and then we'll start the resaw process. The one good thing about this is because it's only 4 inch wide, we're going to easily be able to use the power jointer to get it flat and then parallel through the thickness planer. So that'll save the work that we had to do on the wider pieces with the hand plane. Okay, here we are back at the miter saw again. Let's find one end of the board here. I want to avoid knots. We're going to be dovetailing this into the other side pieces, so I would like to get some decent grain and not have it too difficult to work with chisels and things. So I think a good starting point, if I'm looking from here, is going to be right inside of this knot. Over here, we've got some saw marks here. They don't go too deep. That shouldn't be a problem. So we're gonna save as much heartwood as we can on this side and just go right inside of this knot here, and that'll be our first cut. All right, just like the other boards that we dealt with, this has a cup like this and a bow like this. So when you're looking to run something through the jointer, obviously you want the edges to be hitting the bed to get positive registration. If the center is hitting, then it can rock. Unfortunately, here we have to make a decision. Do we want to fight the bow or do we want to fight the cup? It seems to me that the cup is just a little bit more stable. I can control it better rocking than the bow. The bow is a little bit more difficult to deal with, at least to me. So we're going to go ahead and run it through with the cup side down, and there will be some instability, but just take your time. All you really need to do is get one pass. It's not difficult. Just hold it in the center. Once you get that first pass done, it'll register just fine from there.
This operation we're performing here is called face jointing, and it's the first step in the milling process. Now, when you buy your boards from Home Depot or Lowe's, you're getting what's called surfaced 4 sides lumber, meaning the pine or red oak that you purchase has already been surfaced on all 4 sides. That does not guarantee it will be twist-free and straight, however. But when purchasing lumber in the rough, meaning straight from the sawmill, you need to do these surfacing activities yourself. And this is the first step, the face. This board has some cup in it, as I explained, so maybe it was a little bit hairy for these first couple passes, but it's not too bad. And so the face jointing process will ensure that the face is flat and ready to serve as a reference surface in the next step of the jointing process, milling process. What you see me doing here is marking the face with a pencil. I'm basically just making lines all over it. And that will allow me, when I make the next pass, to determine if the board is truly flat. If all of the pencil lines are gone, that means they were cut away with the cutter head and every part of that surface was hit. If some pencil line remains, that means we should probably make another pass to ensure that we get the full board completely flat. So we'll inspect it here, and voila, no pencil marks. Now we'll move on to the next phase of the milling process, that is jointing one edge. Since we have a reference face, we can hold that up against the vertical fence on the jointer and run the edge through the cutter head. This will straighten that edge, take away the rough cut lumber that's there, and after this step we will have one face and one edge that can serve as reference surfaces. Next we'll head to the table saw for the third step, trimming the other edge, and the fourth step is traditionally at the planer to bring it to final thickness, but we're going to resaw this board first. You'll see what that is in a second. Alright, so before we resaw this on the bandsaw, we're going to cut it to width, which is 4 inches. And that'll just make less work for the bandsaw, although that resaw king blade doesn't seem to have a problem. We'll go ahead and cut this to final width, 4 inches. Okay, over here at the bandsaw, we're going to go ahead and get this set up to do our resaw cuts. And first thing we need to do is raise the guards. Alright, and that's going to need to be just over the height of the fence here so that it doesn't collide, which we have there. I say guard, I meant guides. And then we want this piece to be approximately 5/16 of an inch, but actually what you want to do here is just find the center point of the board and then just cut right on that center point, and then use, you know, the jointer and the planer to get it flat and smooth, and then we'll have 2 equal thickness parts. Okay. So we'll go ahead and mark the center. Alright, so we are right at 3/4 of an inch, so that means 3/8 of an inch. And not quite, but getting close. There we go. Let's go ahead and make this cut. So you've heard me mention resaw several times right now, and that's this cut, cutting the board through its width. If you think of the sawmill when it initially slabs the lumber from the tree, that's the initial saw. We're doing that same operation again, making the board thinner. It's a resaw. At least I think that's why it's called that. Either way, this resaw king blade from Laguna makes it easy work. Yes, look at the book match. Okay, we have our parts here kind of in an exploded view, and we're going to start laying out the dovetails. So if you recall, this bottom piece is sort of serving as our reference, and we're gonna make everything off of here. So let's go ahead and get this bottom part laid out. And the way I'm going to do it is actually very simple. We're just going to line this up. Really just do it by sight, kind of how we're doing a lot of this project. Bring these in. Okay, so that sits proud of that side, and that sits proud of that side. So we're just going to go ahead and put some marks here with our marking knife very simply, just right on the edge, mark there, and then mark there. So there we go. We have this piece marked. We'll do the same thing over here. Okay, so now that we have that marked, we're actually going to cut the rabbet out of here. And because we want to get that done now, that's going to allow us to set the shoulder depth on the side pieces. Okay, so here at the router table, we're going to cut the rabbet. I'm just using a straight bit, 3/4 inch straight bit here as the cutter. And I've already set the fence, and the fence is going to be set by the thickness of the bottom board. So basically just standing it up here and lining that cutter up with the edge of the board. You can use a straight edge across here to get it, but that's how deep we want this rabbet to be. Okay, and then we have to actually start and stop the rabbet before it gets to the edges, because otherwise, in the finished piece, this will be cut out here, and we definitely do not want that. We're going to have a dovetail somewhere in here, but down here we need to keep that wood right where it's at. So to do that, we're going to set up our stops. I went ahead and drew a mark in red pen across there. Just line that cutter up, fairly close. This doesn't have to be 100% exact, because what we will do is fine tune it after we make the first cut. If it needs to go a little bit further, we will, but this is going to register our first cut, and then lining this one up, it will register the other side. So into the slot, into the rabbet. So why don't we go ahead and give this a whirl. The depth, again, we're going to be going at 1/4 inch, so I haven't set the depth yet. We'll go ahead and do that now. An easy way to set the depth is with a combination square, just setting that to 1/4 inch right there. We can go ahead, and we're way too high, so handy thing about a router lift, you can just turn it down until you get to the proper reading here. There we go. So that is about 1/4 inch. We'll go just a little bit shy of it and then perfect it as we make the cuts. So let's go ahead and make this cut.
Okay, now that we have our rabbets cut, you can see that the bit left a half moon circle there because that's the shape of the bit, obviously. So now what we need to do is square that off. Not difficult at all. What you can do is go ahead and come in here with a little square. Actually, probably easier to come in from the top here. And we'll just translate that mark up with our marking knife. And that is going to provide a little bit of a shoulder for the chisel. So the marking knife, like the marking gauge that you saw earlier, is the key to getting perfect fitting joints. We can scribe a line and then set the chisel or saw right into it. So once we get these lines marked, we're going to do exactly that. Do a little bit of chiseling here to get rid of that waste, using those lines to set the blade of the chisel right where it needs to be. I'm using a 1/2 inch bevel edge chisel here to remove the waste and just taking it bit by bit, one corner at a time until it's gone. You can also see me using a hold fast here on my bench to keep it in place. I didn't drill those holes in the bench for nothing. Okay, moment of truth. Yeah. Yep. The pin board, we can't cut these dovetails and then come in afterward and plane this or sand it or do anything, because if we do, that's going to throw off the position of the tail within the pin, and we're not going to have a good fit. It's critical that before we do any marking or cutting, we get this inside face completely finished to the point where we're ready to apply finish, basically. So I'm going to go back. We're going to smooth this with a hand plane, get it basically ready for finish. Then we'll come in, mark the shoulders for the pins, and then we'll mark the shoulders for the tail board, and then we will start cutting dovetails. All right. Before we plane those boards, I'm going to give the blade a quick sharpening. I have 2 stones here. The one on my right is a diamond stone, and I'm actually using it right now to flatten the water stone. It's a 16,000 grit Shapton stone, and those aren't cheap. You can sometimes get them on sale at Woodcraft around the 4th of July. At least that's how I got mine. I actually used a Norton stone for years prior to upgrading to this, and it was an 8,000 and it did just fine. So I use a freehand method of sharpening. First, just set it on the bevel and then go a couple of degrees up and move it around on the 1,000 grit diamond stone. And I do this until I can feel a burr across the back of the chisel edge. That tells you that it has ground away the dullness. And once we feel a burr, which we do here, we move on to the 16,000 grit, set it again on the bevel, and then tilt it up another few degrees just to hit the very edge. It's called a tertiary bevel. Tertiary. I can't pronounce it. It's a third bevel. So do this for a while until you feel like it's done. I usually go about 10 seconds. It doesn't take very long. And once this is done, then the last step is to remove that burr that we created on the back side. And to do this, I set a little metal ruler on one side of the stone and just run it back and forth. That's actually called the Charlesworth ruler trick. And this sharpening system is the one that's espoused by Rob Cosman. You can check him out. He has a lot of excellent videos that are much more in depth than what I'm going through here. We're going to start by planing the interior of these faces. So grain direction here, it looks like the grain is going this way. Looks like it's coming up out of the board like this. From what I can tell visually, Although there are a few knots here, it'll change direction, but I think our best bet is going to be to attack it this direction here. So go ahead and do that. Make sure it's fully down. And wax, plain wax, and we'll go to town. Okay, I can see that it's starting to come on the right side, so a little high. Move the lateral adjustment just slightly. Okay, now it's too much on the left. Now it's just right. Okay, still a little bit high on the left. That's close. It's a finicky adjustment, it really is, but there we go. So we start here, move out here, 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 and there, okay? So, and boy oh boy, is it nice get these shavings. See what the problem is, my shavings are a little bit too thick. I need to back the iron off slightly. And actually there's a knot right there. So that's not helping matters at all. So let's back the iron off just a little bit and see if we can get past that knot. Okay, again, now we've got nice fine shavings. Okay, just about there. All right, and this is planing much easier than the last board because of the absence of knots and twisty grain. Okay, one more. Okay, so yeah, that's very, very smooth. So with that, this is basically finished ready at this point. And now we can mark out the shoulders on this pin board. So in order to do that, I've come up with a method here where we're going to actually set this board in, our bottom board. We're going to set it in place. Set it right in the rabbet. Get it where we want it. And what we're going to do now is mark each side. And this is going to locate the shoulders of the pin board. Okay, so we've marked those. Now we can come in with our marking knife, marking gauge, and set it directly in that mark there. Okay, right there. And then just draw the mark up. We only need to go up about 4 inches. Okay. And then on the pin board, go ahead and do the other side. Now we want a mirror image of that on this board, see, so that we maintain square. So now we'll mark this side with the same setting. Have to do it left-handed here, but that's okay. And then mark the opposite side. And just go real light here because you're going with the grain, so in order to avoid being taken for a ride, you want to maintain positive lateral pressure against the piece and then just take light passes until you get a line. It doesn't need to be too deep. Okay, so then we'll do the other side the same way. Reset the marking gauge to fall into this knife mark here. Tighten it up. Okay, and now we can mark this side. Okay. All right, and the opposite. Okay, one more here. Are we having fun yet? Gee, I hope so. And actually, oddly enough, it doesn't look like our rabbet was wide enough on this one. The marking gauge actually extended down, so no big deal. We'll take care of that now. Still got the chisel here. Can easily handle that. Just pare down and remove that sliver of material. And there it is. Okay. We've got the shoulders marked for the pins, and now we're going to do the same thing for the tails. Okay, now that we've got the pins marked, let's go ahead and assemble this like so. Actually, we can go ahead and assemble it in the vise here. This might make our lives slightly easier. So go ahead. Okay. Okay. Make it even easier. How about that? All right, so this one is going to go right here. And go ahead and mark it.
So now that we've got the rabbets cut and the piece basically to its final width here, we can accurately mark out the shoulder for the tails. So that's what we're doing again here with the marking knife. No need to measure, just set it up and mark it.
I like taking it from the bottom right there and right there. Okay, very good. Now, put these aside. We can translate these marks around. Get a square here. And we'll just, actually that's not long enough. We can translate these right around the board. As an alternative to this, I could shoot this end on the shooting board and then use a marking gauge, but why? I don't need to shoot these ends at all. We'll just run it around with the square here. So I'll get this side. Okay, and then let's do this one while we have it. On the bottom. Okay, and the other side.
So now that we have the faces marked, we'll go ahead and mark the edges. I put it in the vise to do this, just makes it a little easier because that edge is so narrow. If you didn't pick up on what I was saying about using a marking gauge, I don't trust that these ends are square. I don't think I ran them on the shooting board, and if the end is not square to the edge, but you're referencing the marking gauge off of the end to run the line around, your line won't be square to the edge, and that would not be good. It would mean that we would potentially have gaps in the final dovetail joint. So I'm just using a square because I know that the edges and the faces are square. Maybe it takes a little bit longer, but gets the job done without having to square off the ends. So we'll go ahead and end the video here. Next time we will start cutting the dovetails. So look forward to that, and if you made it to the end of this video, please hit the like button below and consider subscribing. Thanks.